To start developing the wave equation, we look at the different columns, and so the students have noticed by now that the frequency and period columns are related. They're inversely proportional, which relates to what we have already discussed. So they already know the equations frequency equals 1 over period, and period equals 1 over frequency. And so I tell them that we're going to use these equations to help us develop more of the wave equation in addition to a couple other relationships. So the other relationship that we look at and focus on is the relationship between frequency and wavelength, which is also inversely proportional. So frequency equals 1 over wavelength, and wavelength equals 1 over frequency. As we saw in the lab, the speed didn't really have a direct relationship or an inverse relationship, so it's just something that we hold constant. We talk about how the speed is more related to what type of medium the object is traveling in, so it's more like the speed of sound in air, the speed of light in a vacuum, and things like that. And so we talk about the fact that since it's a constant, we can take the speed and we can put it up where the 1 is, because the 1 is also acting as like a placeholder for our equation here. So because of that, our equation becomes frequency equals 1 over wavelength, or wavelength equals velocity over frequency. So I asked them if I wanted to solve for speed, how would I rearrange these? And in both cases, they would be frequency times wavelength. And so this is the main equation that we're working from. And I tell them that they can rearrange it to solve for the frequency and the wavelength, but this is the equation that I will provide to them. From here, I asked them, well, if I had period and wavelength, how would I solve for speed? And so they look at the equations that we already know about frequency and period, and students say we can replace frequency with 1 over period. So by doing that, we've created an equation that relates period, wavelength, and velocity, and I tell students an easier way to write it is to move the wavelength on top of the period, and so our other equation would be wavelength over period. So that's how I come up with the equations in our discussion.